our stuff. And last night was the whole union school board advisory board for CTE. And in fact, one of the students that was there, or one of the people that were there was a student of mine about, I don't know, 11, 12 years ago. And now she teaches at Santa Clara University. And so it was nice to see Trish. Her name is Trish. And pretty much, out of all three of the advisory boards, they really, content, writing, making things is very important. Now, of course, these are high school, and trying to get high school kids to write is the challenge that they all face. But I think it's the same with here. If you're making content, you should try and make it the best content you can. Make it original if you can. Try and make your layout, the best design you can. And just the guy from last week, I think it was talking about him. Remember the guy from the app, the Nordstrom app guy? He was a very striving to, just hard work for the high school kids. Getting them to actually make things is very difficult, and so this practice is important. I guess that's his whole point: getting high school kids to practice and getting you to practice. Sort of his point. Okay, let's get into this. So, again, on Canvas this week we have responsive design. We'll start intro today. More about responsive design here, and then of course this one I thought was quite interesting about they talked about making and this is a list apart. It's one of my favorite websites that has articles about web design and UI design and things like that. This one kind of talks about, how there's a lot of frameworks out there, Bootstrap and all that, but they talk about this kind of idea of a Lego and the modular design and how to deal with, everything's a box basically on your website, right? Everything, the box model is basically what is on a website. Everything is in a box. Everything has, margins, and things like that. And so after reading this, it was kind of a good reading. Again, they even talk about Bootstrap and things like that, but learning from Lego and how to fit things together in the box model, and they're using the Lego as an analogy to that. And they talk a little bit about measuring and gutters and things like that. Some of the things we talk about today is the space between our boxes and how to calculate that, right? You need to calculate the space between things as well as the box itself, and there's some math that you can do to do that. And then they talk about some code, and then they talk a little bit about designing complex layouts, and of course the old way and new ways of doing things. And then the last thing they kind of talk about how Pinterest is made, because a lot of what you see in Pinterest is this kind of Lego box. Well, you guys all been to Pinterest before, right? Okay, so Pinterest is a site where people can share ideas and link them together. You become a member, and then things that you like, you can pin them to your wall. Basically, this is your wall. And of course, it's social media, so you're sharing with other people. Okay, you're sharing. And as far as marketing, I think we did talk briefly about marketing and how, and you should think about how Pinterest might be used in marketing. And some people make money off of Pinterest, and some people don't. And then they talk a little bit about the Pinterest design, and they have some examples, and that was it. So it's a little complex, but I think it's more theory than doing the code actually. But I thought it was at least good reading to think about modern ways that layouts are being done. Of course, we're going to go back in time to basically the introduction to responsive design and where it all started and how we can do a basic one. If you want to follow what I'm going to demonstrate today, you can download the sample file that's right here. Right here, the third link under the first link in Canvas for this week. If you click on that, it takes you to this page, and then you click on this and download it on your computer. And basically, this is going to be my starting page that I start from. Okay, so if you want to try what I'm demonstrating today, again, I'm going to be downloading the starting file right here. And we'll then alter it and change it according to the things we talk about today. Again, it all comes down to, and if we go, and I know I have two separate links on here, and I'm not really sure, but in the second link here, if we go to, the article again that changed it all, I think I showed you this already. This article that was written back in May 25th, 2010, which talks about, basically back then, it was all pretty much about fluid design. And the term fluid design means that you are changing the graphics according to measuring them, mostly in percentages, right? How do I change something so that it will scale to a page? Okay, and so this was the original article. You can see the original examples here. Here's the original page that was made, okay, for scaling. And we can see things are scaling. Of course, we talk about the images scaling, which we learned already. Text wrapping. Some of the things that are important would be the space between the edge of the frame and the image. And now this is one of the things to think about. Okay, one of the hardest things in fluid design and responsive design is not only are you dealing with a box of content, like this photo is a box of content, but you're also dealing with the space between the box, okay, and mostly done with margins, okay, margins between them. And of course, as you can see, as it scales, things get smaller and bigger. So this was the original kind of website from that 2010 article. And if we look at the code source, we could see that most of it is being written in CSS. You'll see a lot when we're talking responsive design, things that look like this. Basically, what you're doing is you're calculating this space, okay, the measurement, okay, and usually it's by dividing, okay. And so we're going to look at a lot of code and how to calculate the appropriate size. In addition, of course, they got fonts. And if we look down below, you'll see it has basically, this is old HTML. This is not even HTML5. And so that was the example from a long time ago. In addition, they have this one. This is an article that talks a little bit about how to calculate the actual space. Again, as we scale this down, you'll see that it is scaling and the text is wrapping. If we look at the source code of this one, you'll get a better picture of how they're calculating it. So let's just read this for just a moment before we get into making things. So in this case, I think we were talking about how the font is a base 16, right? Do you remember the base font is 16 pixels by default, which would be 1M. 1M equals 16 pixels. So in this example that they have, and again, this is old, this is not even HTML5, this is old HTML4, but still back then in HTML4, we could do responsive or fluid design. Basically, again, this is called fluid design. Again, if you wanted your website to have the standard 988 pixels and you wanted to be able to measure something, you can measure it by dividing by the 16 pixels. Now they're using the M space here to give you the amount of M's for the maximum width of this document. So by default, this document has a maximum width, so it doesn't get any bigger than the 988 pixels, right? That's the maximum width, 988 pixels. Okay, you see that? Even if I make it bigger, if this was even bigger monitor, it would still be there. But as I go down, things will start to change. Okay, things will start to scale. Okay, and that is done by calculating and using percentages for things. Okay, like the height of the width of the text to the info entry. Of course, this is the box that's on the side over there. They call it class entry. And if we come over here, we'll see entry float left. That's on the left side with a width of 100% within that area. That's on the one side over there. And then the size of the font and so on. So we'll learn how to calculate these numbers as we go through a little bit of the responsive design and how that works. So that was under the second link here. These were these ones. And then again, let's go back to the first one. First link here, the introduction here. So again, let's not get into media queries yet. Here's the book. Here's another older book that I used to use right here called Great Responsive Book right there. If you download that, you can open up and read it. I did this book several years ago. Again, this book is Responsive Web Design with HTML5 and CSS3. It came out about 2012, I think. Maybe. I think 2012. Yeah, 2012. So it's a little older book, but the concepts are still the same. If we scroll down and let's just go through them concept-wise. Again, they're going to be using more HTML5 input. So let's scroll on through. They talk a little bit about HTML5 and how HTML5 is a little bit more forgiving than the older versions of HTML. And what I mean by that is that if you mix in upper and lowercase letters in some of the scripting, it can still render it properly. So that was one of the ideas that they have there. You can bold some of the code they talk about. Again, calculating by dividing to come up with a size. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you'll see a lot of percentages that use decimal places. Okay, so, and the reason why is, of course, we're doing this on the computer, and the computer can deal with 97.9119166666667%. You know, in our brain, you know, having that many decimal places, it's a little hard for us to calculate, but for the computer, it's just fine. Okay, so if you're measuring the width of something with such a large number or decimal places, it's fine. So again, here, if the base is 94 pixels, or no, 96 pixels, and we divide 94 by 96, we'll get this number, and we can plug that in for the width of our box. That's basically what they're talking about. Okay. So in this example, the main box is 96%. Okay. And so then they're dividing to get the header.
Wait, can you go up again to that?
Uh-huh.
If they're using 96% for the header,
Yeah, so the header is here. Here, let's look at the...
My question is, why then do they, what do they divide if they're using 96% for the width of the whole round?
Because there's a margin right here for 10 pixels on each side of the header, so they wanted a little space on the side, right? And so the width of the header needs to have not necessarily 100%. You want to calculate for this, as I'm assuming. Because they got margin right, margin left, and then the width.
What were how did they get the 97.9?
By dividing the 96 by 94, because they're calculating, there's 20 pixels right here, right? 10 on each side.
Okay.
Yeah, to get this number right here, to give it the appropriate size.
And why not the rack order be 100%
I'm assuming that maybe, I don't know, I was just trying to read what they had up here. I don't know. Let's continue. We'll figure it out. There we go. We'll come down here. Smartphone. And then they talk about phones and why it's important to do responsive design. And then they talk, of course, back in 2012, the phones were a lot different than they are today. But still, the same concepts are there. Then they talk about viewport. They talk about how to deal with the viewport. We use viewport equals 1 mostly with our responsive design, right? But there is other viewports where you can have viewport of 0, scaling of 0, so people can't zoom in. They talk a little bit about that. Talk about HTML5. And then, of course, using the common header, navigation, nav list, and so on for basic HTML5, which you probably learned in the first class, right? The HTML5 list. Then here they talk a little bit about using graphics and how you don't need to use graphics anymore to make something of a round box. Again, this is old. You can use the WebKit to do that now. You talk about CSS3. And so on. So you can probably skim over all of this. Of course, they talk about how responsive design isn't perfect, and then they get into something called media query supporting different viewports. And I think we've already discussed about the difference between media queries, and then they actually have a list of the different media queries. And then this is the sample code that I've given you. This one right here. This is what we're going to start from. And so what is a media query? I give you the list here. What are media queries and how to use them is actually from W3 right here. And they talk about, here's the standard for media query all the way back from June 19th, 2012. And of course this is a little bit of complicated, but the most common media query features, of course, is width, height, device, device height. Orientation would be portrait or landscape. Aspect ratio would be 16:9 is the common aspect ratio of high definition. Device aspect ratio. Color you can actually test to see. And so what a media query is you're testing the browser to see what it's in. Am I in a phone? Am I in, how wide is the screen? Width. What is the height? Device width, device height. Orientation is the landscape portrait. Aspect ratio, again, mostly 16:9 is high definition, or 3:4 is old school. Device aspect ratio. Color, you can actually test to see, again, if it has a certain color depth or color or monochrome. You can test the resolution. Does the monitor have 361 pixels or whatever? Scan and grid. So these are media options that you can test for. What's that? Yes, and then the 2 ways to write a media query is basically you can put it in your head section by using a link, okay, to a style sheet. In this case, if you look at this example, you'll notice it says link to style sheet, and then you can have a media query screen. And then, so this first example is for print. Remember the laser printer that's in the back of the room? So on this website, in this first example, it's going to use this CSS file for the screen. But if the person's going to go and print this out to the laser printer, it's going to use this CSS for the print. Okay, so this example is how you would write it in the in the head section with a link to a CSS file. The other one, of course, is a media query that you can put into the CSS code itself within the CSS code, which will pretty much use mostly the media, this option right here, for testing within our code for the actual screen size. And so we'll pretty much be using this example. And so they have some other ones. I don't know. There's a 3D glasses. I don't know what that is quite yet, but there's a 3D glass. And again, they show you the 2 other options. You can actually have more than one thing that you're testing for. Screen and color. Do you see that? So you can actually have more than one. Again, you could have more than width as well as height and things like that. You can combine orientation with a width? Is it 500 pixels wide and in portrait mode? And so you can actually combine them together. They talk a lot about those. This, is, of course, is the standard from the W3C. Again, they talk about aspect ratio. Of course, most of what I just said before was 16:9. The reason why it's 16:9 is the standard for a high-definition monitor. So, you know, most monitors today are high definition, or at least some form of high definition. So they talk a little bit about aspect ratio. Speech is for, I think, screen readers, right? Can it read? And so they show some different syntax and so on. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can read that. That's from the W3C. And then, of course, I gave you a starting file, and I was talking from this book right here. And we're going to get back to that book. Again, I gave you an example. So in this example right here, the media query is written, and let me zoom in a little bit. I know it's a little hard to read here. So this is the code I've actually given you, and we're going to work from this today. So let's look at this for just a minute. In this case, the media query is written into CSS, and it's written in the body tag. So the only tag that we're looking at right now is called the body tag, right? The body tag is everything. So the body is the main visual part of your screen. So by default, it's going to be gray, but it has a media query here. It says media screen. It's testing for the screen, and it has a maximum width of 960 pixels. Let's make the body background color red. Then it's going to say if the the screen and the maximum width is 768, let's change the body to orange. If the media screen is 550, let's change it to yellow. And if the media screen is 320, which would be a small old cell phone, let's change it to green. So if I open up that sample that I gave you, and let's look at that real quick, and then we're going to actually change it and alter it and add to it today. And I don't know where I put it. I guess it's in my downloads folder. No, did I not download? Oh, I think I might have put it in a folder already.
The first link.
Here it is, the one I gave you, the starting file HTML that I put on Canvas.
The
Okay.
First link. Right?
What is it?
The first link on the introduction.
first link.
The first link on the introduction.
Yeah, whatever the file is. It's called starting_file.html. It's under the first link, and it says starting file. Do you see that? If you click on that, it'll open it up, and then you can go to download. Do you see that? Did you find it?
Go back to Canvas. It's the third link.
Starting file?
She's a W3 school. That third link is the starting file.
And then if you click on it, it'll take you to a screen and it says download. Or you can open it and then just save it if you want in a browser. So again, if we read it right now, you'll notice it's gray, right? Why is it gray? Because that's the default. Nothing has been changed yet. See, default, first one, default gray. Okay, so but if we change the size of it to 960, it's going to change to red, right? Okay, body, background color. 960 now has been hit. You can use the word hit 960. It's red. If I change it a little bit more, it gets down to what was the third one? 768. It changes to orange. We scale it down a little bit more. Goes to yellow, and we scale it down a little bit more. Oh, I can't go down to 320. This browser won't go down that far. But if we went down a little bit further, no, if I get it out, no, it should go to gray. Or green, I'm sorry, yeah, green. Okay, so in this case, if you scale it up, it'll actually go back and forth. So this is the standard media query. What a media query does is it's testing the browser. How this example is done is by using the CSS built right into the body tag. Of of course, we can alter this, and let's continue reading. Now, they'll talk a lot about Internet Explorer and how Internet Explorer wasn't very good at handling media queries. But, of course, Internet Explorer isn't really used anymore, mostly, so I kind of ignore it now, especially now that Microsoft has gone to their new browser, Edge, and I don't even know how to deal with that yet. Anybody use Edge?
I use it when I test my coding, and it does almost everything except for this one thing. I forgot what it was.
How does Edge compare to Explorer?
That's what she was just talking about. I don't know.
Edge is like any other browser today, but you can't view source by right-clicking. You only have select all and print options, so it's not as easy to use. You can't like drag pictures up to open them into a new tab like you can in Chrome.
Is it a little slower?
No, but the good thing about it is that you can refresh your design and it will actually show up as refreshed coding, unlike Chrome now. Chrome is being lame with that. Refresh the page.
Doesn't always show.
Doesn't do a
What
thing
the
unless
heck?
you clear your cache.
That's a new
But
feature.
clearing your cache gets rid of your passwords and logs you out of everything, which is just great.
I was wondering why I was noticing that lately.
So that's why I've been using Edge.
Do you
So I
think it
can-
won't show changes to the file?
Sometimes.
Like if you made a file and you had it open in your browser
And you made an adjustment.
and you made an adjustment in the CSS, the change wouldn't show up in Chrome unless you restarted your entire browser or cleared your cache. And by clearing your cache, you also get logged out of everything you're currently logged into. But Edge, you can actually refresh and see your changes.
But, of course, you need Windows 10 for Edge, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So,
All new computers will come with it if you get a computer any time.
okay, let's continue. I'm sure Edge will be something we'll have to deal with eventually. In addition, you can combine media queries. They talk about that, where you can, again, screen and orientation portrait, like we've already looked at. And so on. And, of course, we're going to have multiple. So, again, they talk a little bit about the CSS rule here. In addition to not necessarily putting the code inside of the media test like it is here, you can actually load one for a specific file by using the import URL, okay, and do a test that way. So you're loading in a completely different style sheet according to that. I've done both, where I've had all the code in one. For each screen, I would have, my phone CSS, I would have my iPad CSS, and I'd have my desktop CSS, all in the same code. But you could also split it up into individual files as well, and then load it this way. Okay, so yeah.
Oh, in Edge, what I've noticed is all the CSS works except for the outline offset.
Oh, okay.
So if you make an outline and you want to put an offset, that won't work in Edge, but that's just such a minor thing and no one even uses it, so.
Yeah, well, same with Internet Explorer, had all kinds of minor problems like that. Again, here's the media test things. Again, width, height, device height, orientation, aspect ratio. Color, again, is to check to see what's the bit depth color and bit depth. Color index. Not sure how the number of entries in the color lookup table. So that would be, this would be for an 8-bit screen, is what I'm assuming. Monochrome, again, would be, is it a black and white screen, is what I'm assuming. It's probably measuring the bit depth. And then resolution would be DPI. You can actually test for that. And of course, probably in the future that will be a lot because of the way that they're coming down to all the wonderful code as far as people are getting higher resolution monitors, right? Because even the Android has 5 different screen resolutions, and of course Apple has 3 different right now. So and then they talk a little bit about the best way to go about it, and then they go into doing a project. And I did this project like probably about 3 years ago. So if you want to do a project to get a kind of a basic understanding, the nice thing about it is they go over how to deal with graphics, like the graphics across the top. Of course, is all it is the blue triangle and the red triangle, and of course it's copied across, using repeating and so on. And of course it's done with old school. It's they talk about old school and new school, and then they talk about a grid structure. And so on. So old school, and then they talk about graphics and so on. Let's just and then they talk about this was pretty good. They talk about dealing with the viewport and the initial scaling, and how to even turn off the viewport if you want, so that people don't zoom in. They talk a little bit about that. Oh, here it is. User scalable no. So you can actually tell people so that they don't zoom in on your phone, right? Because you go on your phone and you can scale with your, the whole thing. You can turn that off. Disable users scaling, and so on. And usually by default we use the 1 because it's 100%. We want our graphics to fit to the 100% of the screen. To an extent. And so that's what we used when we were doing the jQuery. And then they go into how to do the different viewports. Let's just practice with the code and add some things to it. So again, you saw the original file. I'm just going to open it up in Dreamweaver just to make it easy on myself here. So if I'm just going to open up that sample file that I gave you. And in this case, it's just a plain HTML file, and of course the body part is the style that we're dealing with, and all I have is little text that is in there, and we can work on that and we can change that too. And let's calculate that. Let's do some calculations. I'm actually going to throw this into an H1 tag, so that little text that was already put inside there, I'm going to throw into an H1 tag, and we'll go and alter the H1 tag above. So of course the H1 is going to have a default size because it's H1. We can alter our default size, of course, up here in the opening code, right? This is our opening code right here at the very top one here. So I just wrap the test text around a H1 right there. If I come up to my opening code and I want to make that the default size, or if we want to make the H1, of course, we can give the H1 a default size of 1M, which would make it what? 16 pixels, right? So we've just altered that. In addition, of course, we could change the color if we want. We could give it color, and we could give it, if it's gray at the beginning, what color should we give it? Red. Red. We could give the default color. What's that?
That's going to clash.
I know, gray and red is not going to look very good. It's the
No, I mean, you won't be able to read it.
yeah, it's the concept. I'm trying to give you a concept.
Quite.
Okay, I guess we could make it white, which would be what? FFFFF?
Yeah. 6x.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. White. Okay, so whatever. Let's change the size of the text if they scale it down. So again, we got background color red here, and we can give our H1. Now, if we wanted to make it 24 pixels, we would do what? What's 16 and 16 is 24, right?
16 and 16 is 32.
Oh, 32. We'll do, what's 1.5? That would be 24, yeah. 1.5 M, we'll make it, oops, of course, put it together with a semicolon afterwards. And then we can change the color of that if we want. And let's just go, oh, we already did color. What color are we going to make it? It's on red right now. Let's make it black, which would be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So let's just look at that. We can save that and test it right now. And we can see that we can have things changing. Oh, well, I guess we can use Chrome. So again, we have this beautiful text at 16 pixels. If we scale it down, oh, it didn't change, did it? What did I do wrong?
Because you put H1 inside of the body tag and that
Oh.
should be its own.
Needs to be on its own. We need to take it out of here. Yeah, my mistake. My mistake. Here. Mistake here. It's got to be after the curly bracket. It has to be after the curly bracket here. And then we got to put our own curly bracket in here.
After the H1.
Yeah, I'm going nuts here. Curly bracket.
You want font size.
Yeah. Sorry.
You need to close the bracket.
And close the curly bracket. There we go.
Same with the media.
Let's just make it a little prettier. There we go. So sorry. There we go. So again, though, it's in the very beginning before you get to the media query, and I would do the same thing down below. Sorry, there we go. Let's get rid of this. No, we want to keep that one. Keep that one. Keep this one. And then we were doing 1.5? And then we were doing black. Okay. Fixed.
And get rid of it inside.
Yeah, get rid of it inside
In
of
the body.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So we got, again,
It's for the two different media queries depending on the size of the window. So when the window's this big.
I can't have it in this body tag. This, it should be outside of that. But of course, it's above the media query here before this takes effect.
So is it within the parentheses?
This one's in the second one, so the size of the text will change. So let's test this one. We got our beautiful gray, and of course, it's bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. Okay, that's all good and fine. I'm not going to go through and do all the other media queries. You get the concept, though, is trying to give you the concept that you can adjust the CSS of your screen. So then, you know, basically what it comes down to is that depending on the size of the screen, we could take our box model, right? The boxes of the content, and we could either scale them down like the fluid design so that they all scale together, or in this case, mostly what we do with responsive design is we'll take the boxes and adjust them below each other to fit a cell phone screen, right?
Wouldn't you just, in the first part, have a set with like 1200, and that's what the size will be on all screens? Then in the next media, in the media query below it, you change that to 100%, and it will fill out the screen for all the sizes below it.
This is the most simple, basic one, is what I was trying to show.
Yeah, I'm just saying you
Mhm.
only need to put in a width for the first media query and not for the other ones if you set it at 100%.
But then how would you say that I wanted it to, like if you were doing the box model, how would you say that you wanted the box to be down here instead of when it went to a smaller screen?
I haven't done the box model yet, but I have worked with sidebars.
Okay,
and
same,
content.
same thing.
What I have is the sidebar, I have it on float left or right, depending on
Yeah.
what side I want the sidebar to be, and then I take off the float and it gets put below the content when the size gets
But how
smaller.
do you know the size gets smaller if you don't have a different media query and it's always 100%?
No, what I'm saying is in the
Mhm.
media query, the first one you have a width of like say 100%, and then the second one you don't need to rewrite the width.
It could scale.
because it will always apply what was in the last one
The
if it's
H.
not repeated again.
And because it's in M's, you're saying it would just reduce it appropriately.
I was just doing widths with like percentages.
Let's add some boxes. How about that? Okay, let's just put it.
And Jeff?
Yeah?
The Murac book, I think, always has the smaller screen first.
Yeah, they go up from cell phone to
How do you decide, which is,
you know, it's probably easier to go from cell phone to desktop.
I find it easier going from desktop.
Some people might think desktop
Because I'm
too.
working on a computer.
desktop? I know, I
That's
agree.
what I'm working on, and then I just work from there, and I go smaller as I continue.
It doesn't matter though which goes first.
It doesn't. No, you need the smaller one at the bottom, don't you?
It should go top down, I would assume. So I don't know.
Because the bottom one always overwrites what comes before it.
So the bottom one's the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean as far as writings top down?
Right.
Yeah, I was just assuming design, you know, philosophy. Do I start with thinking about the cell phone first and then think about, you know, going up from there? That's what I was assuming we were talking about.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, let's just put a box on so we can see how that might work. Let's put a box on and let's just give it a name. The box. How about that?
Alright.
Is that a good name? The box. And then whatever. We'll just call it the box.
Or an ipsum.
And then a closing div. And then let's give it some you know, color, maybe some width and height, and then we'll have it move around on the screen according to the media query. Where is it positioned on the screen, right? Is it positioned on the left side? Is it positioned in the center? Is it positioned on the right side? And of course, that could just depend. It's just concepts I want you to think about. I'm going to cheat a little bit and just use our CSS designer. And in this case, one of the things about Dreamweaver, they actually give you the ability to jump between them right here in the media query option in here. So that you can just quickly jump and say, hey, I want to change it here, 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 and here without having to go all the way over here. Again, I'm going to make the new one here, the box. There it is. Once it's there, I can click off and on it. And then, like I said, I was going to give it a background color. Let's just give it a neutral color. And then we can talk about the size of it. Let's just give it a fixed size right now. Let's do 300 by 300. And then if we want to position it, we can position it at the float option down here. So if I want to float it on the right side, I can hit right. And so I'm not sure which media query I had selected when I did that, but it looks like it made its
It's in the red one.
where did I, oh, here it is.
Well,
No, the
no,
box.
it's in the-
Okay, I want to take the box and put it, oh no, it's in the right spot. So again, the box is here. Notice it's above this media query right here, right? It's above this screen media query right here, so it's above it. And so since it's above and it's at the very beginning here, if I test my page now, I should have no red box. Oh, I have something going on here. What did I do wrong?
We don't have any content.
Do I need to put something in it? Let me see. Did I give it I gave it a fixed width and a fixed height, and I floated
Min
right.
width.
What's that? Oh, I didn't give it a height. Oh, min width.
But you gave it a regular width and a min width.
Oh, I wanted a height. There we go. So I got width and height, and let's look at that. Again, if we go and view it, It's over there on the right side. Of course, it'll always be on the right side, no matter where we're at.
I like using maximum width rather than minimum width when I get down to the smaller sizes. Like I'll have the set width on the default and like the size, but then I'll also have maximum width saying it. So when it shrinks down, it will shrink down with the
According to the size.
yeah. So if it's an 800 pixel image and you've gone down to 768, the maximum width will allow it to resize with the screen. Or div.
So the maximum width would resize it automatically, but if you just put a fixed width, it doesn't. What if you put a percentage instead, max width, width equals
It'll
50%
Yeah,
of the
that-
div,
it'll scale.
Yeah.
Then it'll scale.
It will scale, but what I'm saying is with the maximum width, with the regular width, you can make it so it doesn't go like on, some people have really large screens and you don't want your thing to go completely
Right.
like
Crazy.
some people have 2,000 pixel screens and you don't want your content to be 2,000 pixels wide. You want to set it at, I don't know, maybe 1,200 pixels, and that will be the width.
Maximum width.
And then the maximum width will be a percentage like 100%, so when it hits something smaller than that, it will scale it.
Okay, but you get the idea that it's on the right side, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we can go through and just take that same box and put it into another of the media query down here. After my H1, I can put the box again. We could change the color if we want to, I don't know, whatever color we want. Can I change this color here? Doesn't allow me to change the color here, does it? That's my light sky blue. And then, of course, you could even change the size if you want. And if you want to center it on the screen, how would we center it?
That's the line will align
Yeah.
inside of it.
And margin
You'll
zero?
just need to center the entire thing from the beginning.
That, or can't we just use the text align?
No, because that will align what's inside of the box, but it won't align the box itself.
Oh, on the outside, yeah, that
Can
one.
you do margin zero? Or
We
margin
could do
auto,
auto, right?
Yeah.
We could do auto, right?
Yeah.
We could do auto here, and then auto here, like that.
This is something that takes me 5 tries to figure out how to do it right.
So auto there, and then get rid of
What I
this.
think you need to do is margin 50% minus half of the width of the div.
What's that?
The margin left is, I think, calculation 50% minus 100 pixels, which is half of the width of the div. I think that will put it at.
This one, put it in the center.
I don't think so.
We'll try it.
Wait, did you get rid of the float, right?
Okay, there. Yeah, you're right. It does change size though.
Yeah.
Hey, we got one thing to work.
Oh, I think you need
It
to
kept
remove
the-
the float.
yeah, it kept
Yeah,
the
you need
float.
to remove the float.
That's
Oh.
Float none. Float none.
Yeah, where am I? Am I in the right box? Float none.
Yeah, you got it. There we go.
Now it's in the center.
Oh, the thing I was doing was if you want it like center of the screen, because that's what I had to do.
Oh, you mean down as well?
Yeah, like everything.
Everything in the
completely
center,
centered.
Okay, so now we have it in the center. See, float right, center, and then of course we want left side as well. and so on. I guess we could figure that one out by copying this. And let's go down to the this media query, and let's do a float. So for this third media query, let's change the size to 100. We'll make it smaller. We'll get rid of the margins for floating in the center, and we'll float left. Okay, so
You gonna change the color?
oh yeah, we should change the color.
No, C12, CC3.
What was it? C?
C12, CC3. 12, CC3. There you
What color is that?
go. Oh, it's a fuchsia color.
Whoosh. Okay, so let's test that one. Okay, so right side, center, left side.
Purple.
Oh, it is purple. Purple on yellow. There you go. Okay, center, center, right side, center, 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 center. Okay, so that's all good and fun. Okay,
So
but
much fun.
we're dealing with one box. Now, how do we deal with more than one box?
With a lot of coding.
Yeah. Okay, so the whole purpose of me doing this very basic demonstration today is to, get you to think about the concept of how things can be done, right? Sizing things, moving them around, the float. So, we could even write it out on the board is probably even easier than trying to do it here.
You could also have stuff that shows up on the default size, but you can put display none and have it disappear.
Oh
when you
yeah,
go
that's a good
smaller.
one.
Mm-hmm. Especially,
And the vice versa as well.
Mhm. Especially if you got content that you want to hide on a cell phone because the cell phone doesn't have as much room.
Or if you have like a header image and you want to make it a header text when you size down to mobile.
Or like, yeah, or like
Mhm.
just the navigation bar that disappears when you go to, it goes to a,
Smaller, and we want to do the hamburger menu. That's why I listed that hamburger menu that we did in the first one. So as the screen goes down, we want the menu to change to a hamburger menu. With this example, we can actually put a menu in there and try that. And so on. I think the other thing to keep in mind as far as when you're putting the boxes on the screen is what is the space between them and calculating the margin. If let's say you put 3 boxes on the screen and you want them all to have 20 pixels between them, you could put 10 on each side if they're next to each other and then have it scale accordingly to that. You can measure your boxes by percentage. Right now we just did it in pixels, right? So we can actually change that to percentages if we want. So instead of giving us fixed size here, we could actually put a percentage in there. Oh, I don't know. Can we do percentage height? Why not? Let's see. We'll make it. This percent.
I don't even bother with height.
but then when you
Put
went,
it at auto.
but if you went, I always have trouble with heights.
Yeah, I
When you do percentage width, then the height is so hard to figure out because you don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure if height will work, but hey. So instead of fixed size, we have a very tiny one in the middle here. Yeah, the height doesn't work at all. But of course, because the height is being dictated by what's inside the box. So again, if we go over here, you'll see the box gets bigger. It's going to be, what did I put down there? 30%? 30%? 5%? And then this one, it's even scalable, right?
Yeah.
So this is, I think I put 40% there. Okay, so again, you don't have to do fixed sizes. I could just do percentages. And of course, the height doesn't really work unless you have content inside. Then if it's too big for the content, you would have to put some kind of scroll method. Yeah, it could scale. Okay, but again, just the same concept of having a box that is scalable within that area.
Try to make the box get bigger.
What's that?
Try to make the box get bigger.
Well, on the ones on the end, it doesn't matter because it's going to be a fixed size. This is going to stay 30% no matter how big it is. It's really not. Well, it scales a little bit. It looks like, but as soon as it hits this spot, it's going to jump to that, which doesn't scale very much there. It does a little bit there, but then when we get to
Which one represents which?
what do you mean? I'm sorry.
Code represents which?
Go back to your friend and show you.
Oh, we're just doing the width of the box. So right now the width is 30% here, which is the one on the first box on the far side, and then of course we can come down here to have our box be 5%. That's why it's smaller than the text that's inside it. And then of course the height's not really taking effect. And then down here at the yellow one we got 40% and so on. So
Is the first one just the one that makes it?
what's that?
Is the 30% one just the one the regular one?
That's the first one, yeah, the gray box. See, gray. Gray, 30%. Then we saw the font change, right? So on. Okay.
Yeah, font changes.
Okay, so let's get some boxes next to each other. How about that? I'm going to remove all this and start over. Okay. So how can we get boxes to be next to each other and then to be scalable? It's kind of a challenge, but I think you could possibly think about it. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the box here. Let me save this. Something else. So I'm going to actually just get rid of the entire of the box for now. And so I get rid of the box there. Didn't I have it in 3 spots? Oh, here it is. Get rid of the box. And then I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. And we'll call one the box 2 and the box 3. So now I have 3 boxes, okay, with something in it, right? I have 3 divs, classes, with something in it. So if we just look at what we got right now, I'm going to give it a different name. And we hit save. And we just preview it right now. You're usually going to have 3 pieces of text all on top of each other right there. Okay, so we want to have a box inside there, and we want them to float all the way across the screen. So we're going to have 3 boxes that go all the way across the screen. Okay, so we need to make three different classes. One is the box 2, and the box 3. I mean, we can inherit some of this, but I ain't going to deal with that right now. I'm just going to make a plain box. Okay, so I'm going to go into my, and what did I say I was going to call it? I don't want to change that. Hold on. Let's start. Let me put my cursor in there so it knows I want to do that one. And oh, it's putting in a second one. That's okay. So in the box, we want to give it what? We want to give it a percentage. So if we want 33, what is 100% divided by 3? 33. We're just going to go with that for now. No margin even. Let's do 33% with, we could do a fixed height for right now so we can see it without having problems. Let's do 200 pixels high. I'm not even going to do any margins. Let's give it a color. We'll make the first one kind of, let's do a light blue. And then what did I do? I got 33% with a height of 200 pixels. No margins right at this, no padding at this point, and we want to float left. So it's going to be all the way to the left side of the screen, and that's fine. So then I'm going to move that actually up so that it's under my main body. I don't know why it's underneath this media query. Why is my body here? What is this? Making a mistake here. Why is it? Oh no, that's in the right spot. Why do I have two bodies? Why do I have two bodies here? Two bodies. I'm going to get rid of this body. Okay. So we have one box. Let's make two boxes. We'll call this box 2. And then let's make 3 boxes. And they're all float left. They're all 33%. We'll give them different colors so that they can all be seen. What was that one color that we were using? Oh, no. No, I don't want blue anymore. No more blue. Jeez. Why do I have 2 box 2s? I want box 3. Let's change the color to purple. Beautiful. And then let's change the color box 3 to what color? About that ugly color there. So we have 3 boxes. Let's preview what we got so far. And so they all go across the screen. They're all scalable. And they don't jump, as you can see, right? They're not jumping, but they're all going across the screen. And they're scalable. So this is a fluid layout of 3 boxes that go across the screen that you would have on a responsive site, basically. There's a little space on the edge because the margin is there automatically. Yes? It's 3 boxes. I got one called the box. Again, down here I have 3 classes: div, class, box, div, class, box 2, div, class, box 3. You have your 3 boxes there. If we come up here, I have my 3 CSS boxes, and so on.
What makes it scalable? Is it just making turning the width into a percentage?
What's that?
What makes it scalable?
The width of 33%. If you add 33, 33, and 33, you get up to what? 99.
So when putting the width of something in a percent makes it element scalable.
Yes.
What about the height as a percent?
That's not easy to do. Usually the height, you dictate that by what the content of that's inside it, and it would wrap mostly. If it's text, it would wrap, right? Wrap around the box, and then it would shift down according to the size of the screen. So the height is a little bit tricky to do as far as coding, because it's usually dictated by the content that's inside and the wrapping. So again, concept-wise, for basic responsive design, we have 3 different boxes that are all next to each other.
They all
Two of mine are at the bottom.
What's that?
2 of mine are below that.
float left.
They're all float left, so that puts them all next to each other. Float left, so they're all kind of stacked across. Okay? Of course, that's the concept. If we wanted to be underneath it, how would we put it underneath in the second one?
Right.
So so if we take all this code that we have here and let's move it down to our next media query, and we want to change so our second media. Well, actually, put it down on the third one in Mr. Orange here. Let's go down to Mr. Orange here, Mr. Orange, and let's put it down there. So when it reaches orange, we want to take the boxes and stack them all on top of each other. How could we do that? The problem you're going to run into right now is that they're 33%, so the percent is going to change to a little bit larger, right? Well, maybe not. But what's more important is that, you know, how do we get them to be on top of each other? Float none?
Right.
None?
Right.
Of each other, you want
Right.
None is what I was assuming. If you turn it off, you're basically
Yeah, it's
turning it
not.
off. So if I put none on all three of these, or two of them, I'm sorry, that we're going to leave this
no,
one.
because that will put the box 2 right next to
Ah,
the box 1.
Yeah, let's put none on all of them. And then let's save it.
Float only has left, right, and none.
So if we preview it now, of course we have all our boxes next to each other, beautifully scaled, 33%. And so if we scale it down, it's the same in the second one, right? But if we get to this one, they'll all be on top of each other. Okay, and again, they're only 33% of the screen, so if you were doing this, you would actually have to adjust the percentage to make it look appropriate. Because this wouldn't look good on my iPad, right? This is about the size of an iPad right here, right? And of course, you would need to change the size of the box to fit the iPad then. Alright, so here. This looks great on my desktop. This would, I would assume, is probably desktop. But once you get down to iPad, you want to change it and stack them on top. And then you would change the size of the boxes so that they look accordingly. And then, of course, you can even go down to cell phone as well and adjust it a little bit more. So usually what we would have is at least 3, I would say, media queries. One for the desktop, iPad, and cell phone. That's the traditional way of doing it. Okay, we can stop here. We're just going to continue adding more content and working on stacking things next class. And we'll start putting content in the boxes as well as a picture. We want the picture to be in there and how you deal with a picture inside the boxes, right? That's not as easy as it seems. I mean, last class we kind of just scaled it, right? Remember doing that? But that's not as easy once you put it into the div. It could be a little different.
I have a site that has responsive coding that uses the media query. I can
Send it
show
to me.
I can show it now.
Gene's here. We have to go. Why don't you show it next class at the beginning?
Okay.
That'll be helpful. Okay, thank you. I think we'll just continue